In 2023, Saturn, who brings form, structure, discipline, rules, and real things into form, will move into the sign of Pisces, where he has not been since 1993 to 1996. And that's going to make a big change in your life. And it's going to allow you to ground your dreams into reality and make something tangible from the thing that you wanted to make real, but had trouble getting there doing so. So we're going to look at this from the sign of your rising sign is the most accurate. If you don't know your rising sign, please look in my description box below. Cast your chart using free software. I have a tutorial teaching you how to find your rising sign, and you'll need to know your birth time for that to work. On the other hand, you can also listen for your sun or your moon sign. They will also be useful, but of course the rising sign will always be the most particularly uniquely accurate. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is Lori Lothian. I'm a Hellenistic whole sign house astrologer. I'm using the tropical Western zodiac, and I'm totally down and into asteroids. I'm a bit of an asteroid junkie. Now, what we're going to do today is really focus on you. This is an all signs video. I'm only going to briefly touch on things for the collective. The reason is I've already done a video for the collective, and that will be my 2023 video that you can check in the description box below. Every sign gets something in that video that you need to know for 23, but also I go through in the intro the impact of the big transits of 23, like the change of Saturn after 3 years almost in Aquarius into the sign of Pisces. Now, let's talk only for about 10 minutes, if you don't mind, about the big picture. And if you're new to my channel, please like and subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want to know anything about me, the classes I'm teaching next year, Sky Reader and Divine Timing Masterclass, or anything else I'm up to, including getting a reading with me, all that's in the description box below. And you can also buy your 2023 All Signs bundle for all signs. That's 12 hours of content, or a la carte, get your own 1 hour video. Everything you need to know in the description box under the title of this video. Okay, so guess what? You know, think about it this way, right? Back in 2018, Saturn entered into the sign of Capricorn. And then after that, he moved into the sign of Aquarius. And why does that matter? Because those signs belong to him. And he will do that stint of approximately 7 years in Capricorn and Aquarius back to back every 30 years. And so it's usually a time in which we kind of dig in as a collective, and we go through a time of pruning and hardship and isolation and challenges. It doesn't always coincide with the pandemic by any means, like this time around with the Capricorn, then into Aquarian transit. But nonetheless, it's usually a time of which Saturn is pretty stern. He's like the taskmaster, you know, and he's going to rectify anything that needs rectifying, and he's going to put rules into place to make things happen. So we're kind of done with that. And actually, Saturn first slipped into Capricorn back in December of 17. And then by the time we got to March 7th of 2023 he's coming out of Aquarius. So long story short, we're done with that story. But now he's moving into Pisces, and Pisces is a dreamy, mystical, creative, spiritual sign. Sometimes Saturn here can make, you know, religious movements happen, because Saturn structure, form, Pisces spirituality, and all of a sudden we've got new religions forming, good or for bad. But he's also going to maybe bring some rules and some regulations to Neptunian things, like what? Neptune rules videography. So we're already seeing a lot of rules and restrictions coming into place by governments trying to control, like, say, YouTube. That's happening in Canada, or, you know, create the content on things like that. We saw the early bits of censorship and you know, rulemaking around what's misleading information and what's misinformation, what's you know, fact checked. That can be Saturn in the videography land of places like YouTube. Second of all, he may bring structure and form to things like augmented reality, simulated reality, neural links, pieces of, you know, things in our head that allow us to have, I guess, command over electronics from our brain directly. This is kind of fantastical, mystical, magical avatar style Neptune. And it's interesting, the Avatar movie just came out, and we're getting ready for Saturn to come into Neptune. I expect there's going to be a lot more developments that are going to bring lasting structure and form into the world, with the idea of how we can use an augmented reality technologies, where we see things through a visor and we can feel things with our hands. Watch the show Peripheral. I think it's on Amazon Prime, and you'll get an idea of what I mean, about how we can take augmented reality to the maximum during this transit of Saturn through Pisces. Now, and also maybe have some rules around psychedelics and entheogens and plant spirit medicines, because now people are using them a lot more in different parts of the world. Even therapists are harnessing them to cure addictions. And then all Saturn will do is come in and bring in the rules, right? These are the structures, the rules, the regulations on how this stuff must be managed. Now, when Saturn comes into Pisces in March next year, he's not just coming in for a little bit of time. He's going to stay until February of 2026. And there's a little time that he wiggles out. Okay. So from March of 23 to May of 2025, he's in Pisces. And then August 31st to February 26. So between May of 2025 and August of 25, he will slide a little bit out of the sign of Pisces before coming back. So one of the things I want to say about that is he kind of does a little mini tiptoe into Aries and then backs up and comes back into Pisces and finishes his stint there, is this could very well look like a time in which we're seeing the final finishing touches on what some of these augmented realities, rules around psychedelics and stuff is, because ultimately where this thing is going, what this is really all about, it's about the rendezvous or the final meeting in the synodic cycle of Neptune and Saturn, because Neptune is in Pisces. So you see, what I didn't mention, I probably should have, is there's Pisces. It's already magical, mystical, creative, mysterious, and rules film and filmography. And then Neptune's been there since 2011. And this is why you could be grounding your dreams, your visions, your hopes, your whatever you've been like fantastically imagination is Neptune, since 2011, when Neptune entered your Pisces house of real estate in your 12 pie slice chart. This is why you need to know your rising sign, because it'll tell you which influence, which chunk of reality this is in. So we'll get to that when we do the all signs. And so basically, Neptune on his own in Pisces is formless, spacious, with no boundaries, with no edges. It's like, it's water without a bank to guide it. Okay, that's a good analogy, right? It's like water splayed out and sort of flowing anywhere, but everywhere and anywhere with maybe no place to go that's going to lead to any kind of tangible result. What happens when we contain water? We make dams and we create power. So Saturn will try to contain the watery Pisces realm and the Neptunian influence there, which can be too imaginative and fantastical without necessarily any way to make it real, to bring it into form. Saturn was form and structure and tangible things. Okay, it brings lasting things, edifices. The pyramids are a Saturnian structure and a Neptunian structure, and they're still here. The great pyramids of Giza, the ones in Mexico, the ruins at Göbekli Tepe, and all of that. And who knows, maybe Saturn, edifices and lasting structures, and Neptune, the sea, maybe we'll see some undersea discoveries of lost cities and structures below the sky, the water. Why the heck not? Especially with Uranus and Taurus. So I would expect some undersea discoveries to come over these 3 years. Now, you're also looking at the idea, and I really want you to ponder cycles of reality. One of the things I don't see a lot of YouTube channels doing when it comes to astrology is asking you to reflect backwards in time. What else would we do? You know, because if you were looking at your own life, you want to say, well, what was going on for me the last time this happened? How did it feel the last time this happened? Could I compare it? So go back to May of 93 to April of 96, when Saturn was in Pisces. Okay, like that was Saturn in Pisces without Neptune, but just Saturn in Pisces. You might get some sense of it, a flavor, undulation of what was going on back then. The second thing I want you to think about is I want you to think about the idea that Saturn and Neptune are really coming together in Pisces, but they're ultimately going to meet in Aries. But nonetheless, they're co-present there, and they're making a story, and they're jiving together. And in the synodic cycle of the meeting, every well, I'll tell you the cycle. Hang on. So here's an example. I wrote this down. I really want to you guys to think about this. I hope I'm not losing you here, and this is not too complicated. But Saturn and Neptune meet on this kind of cycle, right? Like in 1917, they met together in Leo. In 1952-53, they met together in Libra. In 1989, they met in Capricorn. And in 2026, they're going to meet in the sign of Aries at 0 degrees, just after we finish up this long tango between Saturn and Neptune, right? That's going to be going on in the sky from March the 7th to February of 2026. And just as Saturn leaves, Neptune is also leaving as well. And they're meeting together in 0 Aries, which is the world axis, which is huge. I can't even imagine what this could mean for the world. So this whole dance is cyclical, it's rhythmic. The meeting of Neptune and Saturn happening in all of these signs in other years is to be contemplated. And you may be thinking, oh, well, it doesn't have any bearing on me. Maybe not. But isn't it interesting to think about it for the world? Now, the other thing I want to say is that when we do the all signs, which is shortly, I'm going to also give you the concept of Saturn moving through the sky, right? Which takes about 28, 29 years, all right, on average. And as he does that every 7 years, he's going to be what's called angular or square his last position. And so as Saturn is in the sign of Pisces coming up in 2023 March, right, until 2026 February, this is going to be traveling through a part of the sky called Pisces and looking across the way over the other side, at the other side of the way, 180 degrees, I'm making sense, aren't I? At Virgo, right? So the Virgo Pisces axis is activated, but also the phalanges or the angles, like an equidistant cross that are square that are 90 degrees away from the 180 degree opposition are also activated. And that's Sagittarius and Gemini. So in your own sky, even though the main action is in Pisces, the other areas of the sky opposite and angular to are also activated. So I'll bring this up on the all signs part of the story. Okay, that will help you, I hope, get a handle on this idea of angularity. So, and technically, if you track the movement of Saturn and you say, oh my gosh, he's in my Pisces house of X, Y, and Z, you can go back in time and say, well, roughly 14 years ago, he must have been opposite that, right? 14 years ago, he must have been in the sign of Virgo. And indeed, he was in Virgo between 2007 and 2010. So it's worth noting that these are rhythmic cycles, and they're building on each other in some fundamental way. Now, enough lecturing about astrology and how the cycles work. This graphic behind me is really cool. That's Aries in the middle. But the reason it's even here is because I've got a great thing to show you guys. I got a trick up my sleeve as we go into all signs. One of my commenters said, it would have been great on your long Pluto video if you had like a graphic that showed what sign we were doing next. And I'm like, I need a video editor and I need a MacBook Pro instead of a MacBook Air, because when you try to do video editing on a MacBook Air with iMovie, it's like painfully exhaustingly slow, and it makes me just want to cry, because then to upload the video to YouTube can take, through the modem after being edited, can take like 3 hours. I mean, maybe I just need a tech agent to come in, but it doesn't seem to work that well with just a MacBook Air, which is what I'm recording on. So what I decided was to do something really creative, and I'm going to be showing that to you today. So now as we go through all signs, you'll be able to see the name and the sign and the glyph of where we are and what we're talking about, and you don't have to ask me in the chat box. Now, finally, let's get going. We're going to start with Pisces. Yeah, I'm really breaking form here. I'm going to start with Pisces because, of course, it's happening in their sign. But if you're in the premiere, because I do these live premieres, and I'm usually in the chat with you where we're connecting, then don't forget, please, at this point, hit my like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And also check my description box if you're new to my channel. You'll find a lot of great things down below that you might be interested in. So I'm going to show you my new trick. Okay, I hope this works. Got a trick up my sleeve. Here we get going with Pisces first. Okay, Pisces, sun, moon, but of course, always most accurate is your rising sign. We're going to talk about what it's like to have Saturn moving through the house of your identity and your body. Now, just to be playful, because Saturn with Neptune in Pisces is not just cut and dried. It's bringing the fantastical to the real. What message from the wind cards by my friend Renee Baribeau, author of the best-selling book, Winds of Spirit. These are little wind cards. This is my wind bag. What do you need to know? And your message for this transit is purification, exhale, and release. And you can't make this stuff up, Why? Because I just had Saturn in my Aquarian first house, and I got this card over and over again for the last 3 years. So let's talk about what it means to have Saturn moving through the house of you. From experience, having just lived through it myself, I want to say that there's a quality of being alone. Saturn is the isolation, alone, the loner, the outcast, the one who doesn't belong, the shepherd, the wise man, the cynics. So you may find that you may have been more alone or will be more alone. I sure was, but you want to be alone. So it's all good. And you may feel that being alone, like solace and solitude, is good for you. You might feel as well with Saturn here that he's got a job to do, and it's going to be to buck you up. He's like the taskmaster, the Zen master with a stick, or Yoda being mean to Luke Skywalker. There's a quality here of adulting, of sobering up, of being more realistic about your life, of getting serious about you and yourself and what you want. It's a very important reset transit. Remember, it only happens every 28, 30 years, and it last happened in 1993 to 96. So May of 93 to April of 96. So you might want to go back and reflect on how it was to have Saturn moving through the house of you way back when. You're going to feel a little bit older than you normally do. We all do when Saturn moves through our first house. And then sometimes we actually make ways to improve ourselves because we feel like time is catching up with us, that the clock in our is tick-tick-tocking on our time here, because Saturn is the Lord Kronos, the emissary of Kronos, the god of time. So quite often we not just adult, or you will adult up and take yourself seriously, but you're going to also notice that time is ticking away. And this makes you really, number one, you may start rejuvenating and doing facial cleansers. I mean, when Saturn was in Aquarius, the last place, right, he just came out of, for 3 years, I was miss vitamin C serum, and then, hyaluronic acid, and people say, oh, you look so young. And I don't do any plastic surgery, and it's good filters and somewhat decent lighting, but I actually just also started taking care of my skin. You might find that when Saturn is here, you are very stern and stoic, and you might just start taking on an identity that you don't really know, because you are Pisces and you are mutable and you're changeable and you're fickle, and Saturn is pretty well laying down the law. You've been having Neptune moving through here for a long time, and where are your dreams, your visions, and your fantasies, and how deeply mystical and enlightened have you been? Because it's almost like an enlightenment transit to have Neptune going through the house of you, but also you may have been dealing with some addictions, some escapist tendencies, burying your head in the sand like an ostrich or something. And now along comes Saturn. It's like, get real. But also what dreams, imaginations, and fantastical mystical experiences can you ground into reality, that things that have happened since 2011 when Neptune entered in here, that you can bring into tangible, realistic form and make practical. Saturn is opposite your house of marriage. And if you have a marriage partner or a long-term relationship, you're going to be very focused on being serious about it. Like, are we getting married or not? Is this something or not? You may also find that changes in your home and career can happen as well. Saturn is angular to all of those houses. Remember I talked about that how he's going to make in the intro, if you listen, he's going to make a square and an opposition to the other angles of the chart, which is across the way Virgo, and on the sides of that, the Gemini Sagittarius corridor. So your 4th, 7th, and 10th house are getting lit up. This is going to change a lot of things in your life in the 3 years ahead. Another lesson I think that's important, and I'm really going to spend some time with you guys because this is a big deal with Saturn here. It's like Saturn is not a race car, right? Saturn is a clock that ticks at a regular interval. So perseverance and patience are called forth in you in things that you're up to in your life. You're not going to be able to try to rush. And you have to be patient. Okay, because otherwise Saturn doesn't go fast, not particularly. Also, consider this: where are you in your life needing to improve your body and your health? Because Saturn will help you do that, but he also makes it clear that there are weak spots in your body and health. He rules like the bones and the teeth. And so these bony, teethy structures and cartilage, sometimes these can be areas that you need to work on and improve. And I did some dental work when Saturn was in my first house, and I hadn't had a cavity in years. You know what I mean? Like, holy man. But it was just a small cavity. But I can remember going, I have a cavity? Like, I haven't had a cavity in years. I was like, felt guilty. I felt like, what did I do wrong? But I do berry smoothies, maybe, said the hygienist. And Other things I'd say about Saturn here is that you could feel depressed, you could feel anxious, you could feel sometimes sad or alone. He'll bring up the feelings that we have with Saturn tend to be the constraint and constriction feelings, but you need to feel it to heal it. So if there's something you need to feel sad about in your life or anxious about, maybe there's a purpose for that. A lot of how this will feel for you as a Pisces rising, sun and moon secondarily, is going to connect to how your natal Saturn operates in your chart. So these are general bell curve readings. And if you have a very strong Saturn and a well-positioned Saturn, and it's in a place that can witness the Pisces house from, you're in your natal sky, it's going to feel different than, other people and their Saturnian version. Okay. If this is Saturn connecting to a Pisces sun or a Pisces moon in your chart, then you're going to find that this is about your mother or father or mother-father figures or home, nest, safety, and maybe life purpose and career. Those are other ways to parse the sun, purpose, career, moon, mother, home, nest, and all that. So understand that that's why we look at a rising sign. It's really about you. Because Pisces has 30 degrees and Saturn's moving through only the first 7 degrees or so in 2023. The early born Pisces with your sun, moon, or ascendant in the first 10 degrees of Pisces will get a lot more juice out of the 2023 transit. They're going to feel it first. You're going to be the forerunners for the later Pisces degrees in the sky. Lastly, Pisces is the place where Neptune is at home, according to modern astrology. Normally it's Jupiter in ancient tradition. This means that in some ways you're going to find that, if that's true, that you have an upper hand here, compared to, say, me, when, or other people who have, like Aquarius rising, when Saturn went through my house. Maybe Neptune will really help guide Saturn, and maybe Saturn will really work with Neptune to create a form for the watery, creative, imaginal things that you've been dreaming up. This is a great time to write a screenplay, write a story, tell a story, storytelling, make a film, find your art form that you love, get your music done, bring it into tangible form, and just bring your mystical visions and your mystical revelations into some kind of lasting legacy form. It's one thing to have spiritual awakenings. How can you bring it into some form that benefits the rest of the world? And believe me, Saturn will help you figure that out. Anything I forgot to say about this transit, because having lived through it, I'm just finishing it, I can't wait till it's over. I found when Saturn retrograded, my health challenges came up, not when Saturn was direct. So that's a thing to track next year for yourself. When Saturn retrogrades, do you feel there's a health challenge? I'm not going to give you all the retrograde periods, so that's not too much beyond this video. Sometimes I would also say Saturn doesn't suffer fools gladly. And your marriage partner, business partnerships, and significant others and audience clients, seventh house people, the Saturn opposes them. And it can be a time in which you choose no longer to engage with certain others in your life because you don't suffer fools gladly anymore. So you will just kind of like cut out or end or let go, maybe. Now, I'm using words that belong to Mars. So Saturn would say, cross the finish line, graduate, complete with some situations like a marriage, like a long-term friendship, like a business partnership, or even with some of your clients and client base. Okay. If that's something that is important to you in your life. And that's it. Okay. So you like my new gig, guys? Don't forget, if you're in the live premiere with me, don't forget to like and subscribe. I figured out how to do this without video editing. We're moving on next to Aries. So Aries, sun, moon, but always most accurate rising sign. We're going to talk about what it means that in 2023 March through to February of 2026, we have Lord Saturn moving through your sky in a particular place that you haven't seen since 1993 to 1996. And this time he's with Neptune. And that, for you Aries rising and sun, moon secondarily, is an important transit of spiritual awakening. Saturn moving through your 12th house is going to open up the doors of perception of new vistas because he wants to be sage-like. Here, he is the wise woman, wise man on the mountain, the hermit in the cave, archetypally as he moves through this part of your sky. One thing he does when he's here is he helps you get serious about your spiritual journey, your spiritual path, what it is you're aspiring to when it comes to connecting to the divine. Now, he doesn't only just do that. We're going to talk about other things, but even if you're not religious, but you know, that's not your thing, you may find yourself looking for deeper meaning in life. This is a moksha or liberation house. And so you're going to find yourself leaning into the question of the meaning of life and trying to find a deeper connection to divine flow, ease, or maybe divine mind. When he's going through the 12th house, he can also help you learn something that you need to learn or study. Now, this is because he squares your 9th house and your 3rd house are both learning homes in the sky for you. This worked in my life back in the day in 2017, 18, when I started studying Hellenistic astrology and really dove into it head first. So I began to study what became my new direction as an astrologer and actually my new career, because until I learned these things, the tools and techniques of ancient astrology, I thought astrology didn't work well enough to use it as a career. And I've been doing it since I was in my 20s, and I was casting charts by hand, and I've been using astrology for years. But the Hellenistic prediction tools and accuracy of whole sign houses made a difference for me. What I consider Saturn to do here as well is make you feel that you are on a Marie Kondo of the soul, where you are eliminating and reducing peripheral, sparse, lean, mean, stern. You know, Saturn wants you to kind of get down with what needs to be let go of in your life, particularly patterns of karmic, patterns of self-sabotage and undoing, patterns of addiction. Saturn in my 12th was the beginning of me starting to think about sobriety, like not drinking so much wine. And I began to like experiment with large times off without any wine at all, and joining like clubs called Sober Sisters and learning about the idea of alcohol being an addictive substance. I just never thought of it that way, you know. And so if you find you might have an addiction or a tendency or a habit that you're pulled into and you don't feel you're in control, and Saturn brings control. And so you're going to be bringing more control into your life as you begin to look at how you want to create a life that is giving you the freedom to be free from addictions, bad habits, self-undoing, and self-sabotaging strategies. And this is a big deal transit. And if you go back to 93 to 96, May of 93 to April of 96, you may have been going through something very similar. All right, so go back and think, Aries, what was going on for you then? Saturn here definitely is called the loner or the hermit transit. Now, even though I just mentioned for the Pisces that Saturn in the 1st house can lead to aloneness, this is even more so. This is definitely going to make you feel like being alone is a mandate, like you want to be alone. Okay. It's not like someone's forcing you to be alone. And being alone serves you. And so you're going to go into more natural isolation. And you might find that by being alone, you're getting some real accomplishments done. So it's not a torture chamber. As you're going through that part of your chart and you're being more alone and you're being more spiritually wise, you're looking across, Saturn's looking across the way at your 6th house. Is a karmic house, karmic debt house, but it's also a house of your work and health routine. So you're going to really start to focus on more of a rhythmic work and health area with Saturn discipline, and discipline with your health, being disciplined with your work. Okay, these are stories that you have coming through the Saturn 12th house transit. Saturn is elders and wise old people, and sometimes wise old spiritual people. And so you could be investigating, learning and studying from people who are older and wiser than you, even going on a pilgrimage or a retreat to a foreign land. For example, when this happened to me, I went off to Bali and studied with a spiritual mentor. The woman wasn't older than me, but she was a spiritual mentor. So that's a prime example of what I mean. And that was happening in 2017 when we had, or 18, whichever it was, when we had the Pisces, Saturn in back in a Capricorn. But for you now, you could find a spiritual guide, basically. There's a sense here too of the possibility of creating money from abroad. This meaning of the 12th house can be kind of like the barter and trade, the spice trade kind of thing in the ancient world. And Saturn would give you focus, structure, and discipline, Aries, to how to make that happen. Now, sometimes in our modern world, all my income, I'm an Aries sun and moon. My income comes from abroad. All my clients, United States, I'm in Canada, around the world, etc. And so in that sense, it could be putting new forms of structures, literally like new payment processors, new tax accounting systems into place in order to keep generating that revenue and making it very stable and persistent and solid in some fundamental way. What else can I say about the 12th house? If you have any elders in your family, Saturn could mean an elder in the hospital. Of course, it's a 3-year transit, but it is a time where the hospitals, meaning of the 12th is asylums, sane asylums, hospitals, incarceration, jails, places of isolation. And we're isolated in the hospital, in a dungeon, we're isolated in a jail. And so elders in isolation. So maybe some of your elders in your life, grandparents or something, could be going into those conditions, hopefully not jail, during this transit. The best I can say, having gone through it only a few years ago, is maximize the value of your alone time. I channeled 2 books, The Coming Age of Miracles and The Way of Miracles. I'm just afraid to publish them, frankly, but a lot of people downloaded the free PDF during that period because I was in a deep spiritual quest and soul search. And those books came out in 2019 during Saturn in my 12th house. So who knows what spiritual thing you can attain during this transit. I wish you the very best, Aries, as this happens. And with Neptune here, which I should have mentioned, Neptune in the Pisces quarter of your 12th house sky, you could definitely be channeling, right? You could be drawing in something deep, something magical, something enchanted. Often writers, 12th house is like the back writing room, where you're back in the writing room doing something undercover in your secret garden, okay? So if at all you want to write something fantastical, mysterious, and magical, Saturn gives you the discipline and structure, Neptune, the vision and the storytelling and imagination ability. And it angles to the 3rd house of writing and the 9th house of book publishing. So as an Aries sun and moon, I'm damn well going to write the 2 books that I have to write, one on astrology and one is in fiction. Okay, I'll get my act together and get disciplined about that. All right, moving on to Taurus. Taurus, sun, moon, and rising sign, especially and most always accurate rising sign, but you can listen for your sun and moon as well. Well, my Taurus people, because I say my people, because I have a lot of you in my life, including my Taurus sun daughter. Here's the dealio. First of all, before I even say anything, go back to 1993 through to 1996, depending on how old you are. You know, you might remember very well what was happening then. And this is the last time you had Saturn moving through your 11th house. Your 11th house is a house of good spirit, in quotes, but it's a house of friends and allies, benefactors, social groups of belonging, and all-purpose general friendships. And Saturn can restrict and constrict the friendships. And I know that that sounds like yay me, but he's paring away, he's pruning the dead wood. So anything that doesn't last in your groups of belonging, like in social circles and friendship groups during this new transit, will have benefit in the long term. And so if you do want to go back to 93 to 96, did you suddenly ditch a lot of friends? Did a lot of friends ditch you? Did you unclub yourself? Did you change your groups of belonging? Did you leave a society? Oh, I kept forgetting. Oh, I was going to draw a card for every sign and I forgot the Aries. Sorry, Aries. The Aries got ripped off, but let's get one for you guys. What do you need to know, Taurus, about this whole segment of time in which Pisces 11th house is activated? It's guidance. Pause, reflect, and accept. Okay, that's Renee Baribeau's Winds of Spirit Windbag. So during this time, you're going to be pausing, reflecting, and accepting and looking for guidance. Now, funny is guidance because the 11th house is friends and allies that benefit you, right? So you may be getting that from guidance from them because Saturn is the wise man, wise woman, sage-like quality. So you may be getting guidance from people in your larger group, social groups, friendship circles, or even people who have power, because Saturn can be an authority figure or an expert figure in the house of belonging to groups of people. Now, when Saturn goes through here, you may revise some of your dreams for your life. And what I mean is that you may have had these fantastical visions and imaginal riffs of what you wanted your long-term plans to look like and your hopes, dreams, and wishes to look like, because that's one of the meanings of the 11th house. It's a forward, future-facing house, and your kind of ambitions in terms of your ideas of them are in that space. And Neptune's been here since 2011, so a lot of these forward-facing plans have been fantastical and highly imaginary, but visionary, but not necessarily groundable in reality, right? And that's what's going to change. And that's going to change because now you've got the help of Saturn. So Taurus people, this could be a big turning point for you, where some of your longer dreams and goals for your life and fantasies and imaginations can come to into real form between March the 7th of 2023 and February of 2026. So what more can you ask for than the help of backbone structure, Saturn, to bring into reality things that you've been dreaming about but haven't been able to pull off? So it's time for a change there. Saturn makes you realistic as well. And so you may be more realistic in your dreams, right? Is this realistic? Or, is this like possible? Like, can I possibly do it? If not, you might revise your dreams, but you revise them and you make them stronger. They're no longer floaty, they're real, they're tangible things that can happen. You got the backbone to do it and the realism to see it through, and all of that good stuff. This is the house of the eldest sibling, and maybe your eldest sibling may be of assistance to you in a structural way, helping you in some way, or there may be some hardship with an eldest sibling because Saturn can bring constraint. So it's a 3-year story, and we'll see when it plays out. Like I said in the beginning of my video, I hope you listen. Maybe I didn't mention it, but it's going to be for Taurus 0 to 10 degrees, sun, moon, and rising that get the most effect from this transit. All right, the most effect from this transit in 2023, because Saturn only makes it into the 7th degree and then retrograde. So you really are going to have the most juice, but all Tauruses will feel it. Saturn in the 11th house. The 11th house is the money and reputation gains and the great gains from superior gains from your career, your 10th house. And in some ways, this is not always true. It depends a lot on your floating midheaven, but that aside, it definitely says that you're going to gain with more form. Saturn can dampen some of your gains, like if you were hoping to make $100,000 a year next year, and you're like, oh no, you're tempered here. Maybe your gains from your career and your ambitious goals will have sort of less money than you expected, or less success than you expected. However, Saturn also brings you a foundation over time, in this case 3 years, to create a longer lasting platform for great gains from your career. So maybe you thought this was the way you wanted to do it, and Saturn comes in like a stern principle and goes, that may get you rich quick, and it flashes in the pan, and it won't help in the long run. And this is how you need to work it out in the long run. So getting great gains from your career is not Saturn's trying to kibosh it. I mean, he was, basically in your career house the 3 years before. And Saturn does kind of a preparation zone. He was in your career house for 3 years before. Technically, that would have been in Aquarius. I'm going to give you the date, so give me a sec. I have all these little charts in front of me. The exact, March of 2020, he first ingressed into Aquarius. He did zig out though, and he finished by March 7th of 23. But in general, that longer arc of time, Saturn was going through your career house saying, is this what you want? And if not, let's change it up. So some of you started new career paths, and some of you were capitalizing and peaking out in certain terms of mastery of a certain career cycle that had started up to 29 years ago, 13 or 14 years ago. And basically at this point, Saturn was preparing you for your 11th house journey, which is to say, do you want great gains from this path? And if so, here's what we're going to do. Okay. And don't be disappointed and frustrated at the pace that things are going in terms of making money from your career or succeeding in your career, getting awards and rewards from your career. Don't get frustrated, because Saturn is about perseverance, patience. He's not the what do you call it? The tortoise and the hare. He's definitely the tortoise. But as he goes plodding through, he makes substantial positive changes in the house of good spirit that work on your behalf. Now, if you came for a reading with me, I'd be looking at what Jupiter's doing in your chart, for example, because Jupiter is the Lord of Pisces. But we're not doing that. Why? Because this is a general reading. But where Lord Jupiter sits in your natal sky is going to also influence how this works out. Okay, Taurus, I think that's it. I know I'm going to forget something about your 11th house of good spirit, but we'll just go with that because this is just a overview and not a personal session with me. Hi, Gemini. This is all about you. What happens when in March 7th of 2023, all the way until February of 26, you basically have Saturn moving through your 10th house of career, reputation, ambition, visible action in the world, how you see yourself as successful, and more particularly, others see you as successful. Now, to contextualize this, you did have this transit back in May of 1993 to April of 1996. So Saturn up here is kind of interesting. Saturn moving through the 10th house can be about changing your career path because you've already reached some level of finish line energy, or starting your career all over again because you no longer are going to move in that direction. It doesn't interest you. And, there was a kind of a critical turning point during Saturn moving through Virgo in 2009, September to July of 2010, when you were setting course for this high hill called the mountaintop of my career. So if you go back to September of 2007 to July of 2010, you were at the bottom of a valley deciding to climb to the top with Saturn's help of a long career objective. However, that old transit of Saturn in 2007 to 10 through your fourth house is now peaking out, right, over the next 3 years. And so if you were climbing a mountain, you wanted to climb, this is wonderful, but that old saying about you climb up to the top of a mountain, you look across at the adjacent summit and realize you got up to the top of the wrong one. Sometimes Saturn in the 10th house is like, I'm at the top of the wrong summit, and we change our career path. And so there's just that part of it. What can you do? If you're already on the path of success for what you want to be doing in life, you get new authority, new power, new mastery, and you get new levels of sincere recognition for the hard work that you've been putting in. So when Saturn was in Aquarius from 2020 to 23, this was a time when you were getting on the runway for what you have now would consider a time of great success. You were preparing the way as you move through your 9th house. Saturn here can also mean that a person in power or authority will be showing up in your life to be your guide, sage, or mentor. That's always possible. Saturn up here is also squaring your ascendant, which is your body. And this is always a difficult feeling. And this is most true for Gemini, sun, moon, and rising in the first 10 degrees. In 2023, Saturn will square the degree of 0 to 7, but it'll affect up to 10 degrees. So if your rising sign is 0 to 10, Gemini, take care of your health, because this is a transit. Like if it was squaring your sun, it could be your dad is under a lot of duress and your career feels heavy, or your mom squaring your moon would be your mom feels having mental health challenges, sick, depressed, or whatever, or you're having challenges around your safety, security, and nest. This is why we want to listen to the rising sign, because it's just really all about you. So take care of your health, because Saturn may be having you work hard in your career and at the expense of your body and your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And such a classic burnout transit, frankly. So be careful for the burnout factor of Saturn in your 10th, where all you do is work hard to be successful. And at the same time, you never take care of your physical wellness, your body, and your personal needs. Saturn opposes the fourth house of home. And this means that you may be having some problems at home because Saturn is busy in the 10th, glaring down at the fourth house. So your home life may feel, tragically unhappy or just difficult, or you may be not aware that the people in your home are struggling because you're so busy in your career, not paying attention to the people you live with. Saturn up here, though, is mostly saying, let's get your career down. Let's really work on this thing. And let's either start all over and start a new cycle of what you care about because we're on the wrong mountaintop, or let's create a masterful grand finale so that over the next 7 years, we can capitalize on this transit, and it will be like a woohoo moment for 7 years, you know. And, you know, astrology is very subtle in some ways, and there's so many layers to this transit. Like, for instance, where is Jupiter in your natal sky? It really influences how well or how difficult or how easy this transit could be, because Jupiter is the ancient ruler of the place of Pisces. Now, you know, Neptune up here in your 10th house has been trying to help you have visions and goals and dreams that are quite fantastical regarding your career, but you may also have been confused and foggy and deluded as well about career and ambition and success since 2011. And then along comes Neptune, and Neptune's kind of like, well, enough of this fantastical shit. Let's get real. Let's make this career ambition goal thing a tangible outcome. Let's make real tangible results. Bring it on. You know, he's the results guy, but with a cautionary note that nothing happens overnight with him. It is a 3-year transit almost. And so it's about patience. It's technically a calendar 3 years, but it's like 2.5 because of a retrograde, but patience, perseverance, discipline, and focus as you move through this up level of your career, to move it to a new authority and power and mastery. All right. And you know, anything you've been dreaming about and you wanted to get off the ground in your career, and you had visions and dreams about Neptune, but it hasn't really materialized. This is your 3 years to get it to materialize. All right. March of 2007 to February of 2020, March of 2023 to February 2026. This is the house of the father in one of the systems you can use, and Saturn up here can bring hardship. So your father may incidentally have some hardship in his life or her life. This would be more true if your sun is being squared by Saturn, meaning that if your sun is in Sagittarius or your sun is in Gemini and Saturn is moving through Pisces, squaring your sun. So this is like going to be a square to the father. So that could mean that your father's having difficulty. And also, of course, any father-like figures or people that you respect could also be challenged, because sun is like patriarchal figures as well as father figures. And that's that. I think that's it. I can't think of anything I might have forgotten. I do want you to go back if I didn't say so, but I think I did. You know, I believe I said go back to 1993 to April of 96. The only difference is Neptune wasn't helping out, but you did go through that kind of mastery, top of the mountain summit, mastery career vibe back then. So it might help to look at the past to predict the future. Now I've got like 7 lights on in the kitchen and it's getting dark again here in Vancouver. If you're watching in the if you're watching in the premiere and we're together chatting and you haven't hit the like button yet, would you do that? Thank you. And if you want to subscribe, it really helps the channel grow. And also, if you're new to my channel, please check the description box below. Everything you need to know, from my Sky Reader class to my Divine Timing Masterclass to my 2023 All Signs bundle, or buy them a la carte. That's 12 hours of video content for $35. Use code Santa25. All the information you need is in my description box below. All right, enough with you, Gemini. Moving on. Hello, Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising. You won't believe it. I just stopped and poured some more tea up into my glass, or heated up my glass. I just spilled some on me, but I want to tell you something about this tea. No, I'm not promoting it. It's called Turmeric Amber Sun with Rooibos, Cinnamon, and Cardamom by Numi. And it is so amazing. It is my newest love find tea. And the more I drink tea, the more I love it. So I just became a teetotaler after I had COVID in September. Yeah, Cancer, I'm telling you all about my problems. So let's get going. Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. Number 1, you know, we're talking about Saturn, you know, moving through Pisces, which he did in your sky between May of 93 and April of 96. He's doing it again between March 7th of 23 and February of 2026. So you might want to connect the dots, compare the times, right? You got the different vibe this time because Neptune's co-present. So this is your 9th house of God. Truth, wisdom, spirituality, book publishing, foreign lands and travel, God, did I say God? Courts and court cases, things to do with the meaning of life, your dharma, your faith, what you believe, you know, religion and all of that. It can be the house of the third marriage in one of the ancient traditions of India. There's two systems. So this part of your sky is actually going to be activated by Saturn for a totality here of number of years, 3, and it's going to help you deepen here. This is a house of learning, like going off to university or college, but I mean, Saturn here can teach you something. You may learn, study, go under a tutor, mentorship, guidance, do a PhD, be tutored or mentored by somebody very wise and sage-like, because Saturn can be sage-like, you know. So this is a story here that has a lot to do with this metacosmos house. It's between the worlds. And if you're wondering what that is, it's a little like make you feel really good incense thingy, essential oil, and it makes you feel like this is a transit, like I remember my version of it, where your spiritual life can deepen, most specifically through a tradition of some kind, like finding some kind of meditation style tradition, going to a church, connecting with a spiritual discipline of, you know, a lineage of some kind. Saturn in the 9th house is about lineages. So maybe suddenly realizing you want to go into a Buddhist tradition and learn about Buddhism, or find out more about the Sufi tradition. So your spirituality can take a real tangible, grounded form. Now, if you've always been super woo and not really into any particular religious belief or faith-based practice or meditation practice, this can change. Because you see, Neptune's been going through this 9th house of God, which is a metacosmos between the world's house, where we, you know, go on pilgrimages and have direct connections to the divine. Well, you know, this thing, it has been Neptunized with the god of highest imagination, trance states, the god of unconditional love and potentially enlightenment. He's been going through your 9th house of God all by himself with no one to help out. I mean, without no major force to be reckoned with since 2011. And now in comes the planet Saturn. And Saturn is, it's almost like being off at a mystical spa where, you know, there's a bunch of people grooving down on with their, like, you know, love beads, and they're all doing like mantras that they made up, and they have a lot of affirmations on their fridge, like I am wealthy and beautiful and perfect in every way, but you don't believe your mantra on your fridge anyway. So nothing happens. And so you've been floating, right? Floating in kind of a dreamy, spiritual, lofty, ideal place with maybe any tangible results. So along comes Saturn. I'd say a lot of Cancer rising in particular, Sun and Moon secondarily, will open up a new level of spiritual wisdom, because your mystical side becomes connected to a grounded, tangible, realistic side. Now, Saturn can be about structure and discipline. So this is, again, you know, meditating once every 2 months is not the same thing as getting on the mat every day, or doing yoga every day, or lighting your incense and praying every day, or chanting every day. So this is more like a time in which you could come into a really concrete, tangible, and reliably predictable and repeatable, rinse and repeat form of spiritual practice. And don't discount meeting a very wise person. Neptune, Saturn energy up here could be that you find your Sat guru, your true teacher. All right. This is not conflated. Like sometimes, like Neptune, Jupiter, I met a false guru under Neptune, Jupiter influence, but this is Neptune, Saturn, and it's going to give you more sober, realistic expectations of a teacher, but also the ability to attract a more real and true teacher, not somebody who's a fake, basically. I don't think you can not benefit from this spiritually. That's what I'm saying. Saturn is in a trine flow to your ascendant. And of course, this could really open up some collateral benefits to your health and your sense of identity, and your mental health as well, and your sense of who you are. You're like almost drawing from a very sober Saturnian well inside of the metacosmos 9th house that you can like sippy straw it over to your body and you can become more vitalized, more healthy, more well, more solid in your identity. So it's like to be loved up, right? And you know, this kind of transit is something that may have a real lasting effect on your worldview. You know, it may change how you see God and the world at large. You may never be the same. You only get 3 of these in a lifetime. I mean, if you live into your 90s, right, kind of thing, or whatever, on average, you only get 3 of these in a lifetime. You can't go wrong if you're looking at things like pilgrimages and ashrams, getaways to foreign lands in order to learn or study or become spiritual. Now, If you're going to think of going to university or you are in university, this gives you discipline, grit, determination to achieve your goals. If you're already there, you got that coming in now. This can also be a time in which things you're doing in academics now garner the support of a supervisor. Maybe this is your advisor and you get a quality advisor. But that aside, this means your academic world, like a PhD advisor or something, that your academic world becomes hard. Like you're working hard. There's no doubt. Wherever Saturn goes, hard work follows, right? But you're paving the way for the 10th house energies that are going to come 3 years from now. So by doing the gritty work now on the runway of the 9th, heading to the 10th of accomplishment and achievement, you're setting down parameters for success. And so the hard work now pays off in your career place in 2026, add 3 years. So it's worth grinding right now. So it's definitely a grind in the learning place, in the spiritual place, working hard, being disciplined, getting a tradition under your belt. This also can look like if you're dealing with courts and legal matters, this is definitely going to be a time in which those things feel like a grind. And it's like, you thought you get off to court and get a judgment on something, and it's going to take 2 or 3 years now, or, you feel constrained in legal matters for some reason. This is the house of the father in Vedic astrology. There may be some hardship for your father or a father figure. This might also be more true if your sun, which really represents your father or father figures in your life, if you're born with your sun in the sign of Sagittarius or Gemini. It is going to be Cancer in the first 10 degrees rising, 0 to 10 degrees of rising, that feel the benefits of this transit and the influence of this transit the most in 2023. And then later on in 2024 or 5, the rest of you get your turns in sequence. But nonetheless, all Cancer risings will just feel that something in the air has changed regarding 9th house matters. Okay, I try to think another 9th house matter to address. It is foreign lands and foreign shores that you can travel to as a general principle. And things to do with foreign shores from your birthplace can feel hard. So I know a Cancer rising who moved to Portugal, and she may begin to feel that that is a hard choice that she made, or there's hardship because of moving to a foreign land. But there's also the potential here for mastery connected to a foreign land. So hardship, mastery, take your pick. Sometimes mastery requires hardship, or being masterful is always going to feel like it involves some sense of hardship. If you're into the book publishing world, like you publish books or you want to publish books, this is the house of publishing, and this is Saturn. It could bring you a legacy product. You might publish a book that is going to outlive you. You could be looking at publishing a book that is a serialized book, the first of a trilogy. This is good for publishing. You may get the attention of a high-level established publisher, agent, editor. So you're going to get authority and mastery maybe over the 3 years in the area of book publishing. So my Cancer rising friend, I just mentioned, is writing a memoir, and maybe this is where that thing takes off. Like this book becomes more than she imagined. With Neptune there, if you're writing a book and it's going to be published between now and 2026 February, this could also be movie rights, because Neptune represents the film industry. Okay, I hope that was useful for all of the Cancers out there. Wish you the best in 23. I'm recording this December of 24th, 2022. And all my Patreon community gets this ahead of me for $5. Consider grabbing that kind of a deal to get ad-free content ahead of everybody else. If you're in the live chat, please hit my like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And if you're new to my channel and you're listening to this anytime on the replays, don't forget to check my description box for everything I have, especially my All Signs 2023 a la carte videos, an hour long each, for only $14, or for $35, all 12 videos, 12 hours of content, allows you to listen to Sun, Moon, and Rising and share with friends and family. All right. And it's the code below, Santa 25, for the longer version is something you can grab. By the way, all of my videos, all of my products are in US dollars. Someone asked me, a Canadian bought a product and was all miffed about it. It's because, well, first of all, my clients are 80% of my client base, or 70% of my client base and YouTube channel watchers are from the United States. But it's because it's an international currency. And that's what I use, because if you're anywhere in the world and so you're paying in US dollars, you know what you're getting. If I put it in Canadian dollars, that's different. Like I hate when I go to a website, it's in British pounds or euros, and I'm like, just convert it to US dollars. It's international, basic standard currency. Oh, wait, enough of that. All right, moving to the next sign. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. This is the movement of Saturn from March of 2023 to February of 2026 through the Pisces corridor of your 8th house in your whole sign house real estate. Your 8th house aspect, this happened in 93 to 96 as well. So go back and look for the historical context. Maybe you can connect some dots, although this time we have Neptune co-present. This is a house of money that doesn't belong to you, but that you can get your hands on. You know, it's when we share resources with a spouse, it's inheritances, it's leverage money like loans and mortgages. It's stock money because the money is from a stock. We're buying into a company and we're making money because they're making money. We're sharing a resource. So stock markets, investments, inheritances, tax rebates, you get the gist, right? So I call it the chunky money because it's not your drip drip paycheck necessarily, although royalty income can also be the 8th house. Now, if you're a Leo rising and any of these areas of your life have been struggling, you've been struggling with, you know, this stuff, right? Leo rising is most accurate, sun and moon secondarily. Saturn is going to help clean it up. Think of him like the accountant going in to tidy up and work on and stabilize this kind of money in your life. However, sometimes Saturn here can look like you're having some challenges and a bit of hardship with that money in the sense that it may feel more austere than normal. You may wish you had more money in your bank, in your 401k. Saturn going through here could look like it feels like a hardship to separate assets in a divorce. It feels like a difficulty to take possession of the inheritance because Saturn can bring a feeling of heaviness, obligation, constraint. But on the other hand, his goal is to give you a new foundation in this part of your sky and to up level that part of your world by the time he's done in 2026. Sometimes here you may find yourself going deeply into the occult magical worlds, and maybe Saturn is a sage or a teacher that you encounter. This can be like studying tarot, astrology, mediumship, and all of that stuff. Maybe that go back to 93 to 96, what was happening in money or mystical things that are occult in your life back then. Now, sometimes I think of Saturn moving through the 8th house as going into a kind of, like you can't see the 8th house from your first, so behind your back and under the surface in a secret way, that's the house of secrets as well, he's trying to stabilize the way your finances are working in the long wealth game of your life. So this can also look like your husband or wife, if you're married, and what they're up to, because this is shared resources and it may not be your story. So keep that in mind. Saturn moving through the 8th house can look like an inheritance, but from an elder. It's like, I mean, like a grandparent or a great grandparent or a great aunt. And so if that even could make sense in your life, then you're looking at that elder inheritance coming through anytime, in the 3 years of this transit. Neptune has been here for a while, and this has made a lot of you Leo rising, especially sun and moon secondarily, more inclined to the magical, the occult, mysterious, and mystical realms of life. This has been happening since 2011. My sister is a Leo sun. She got involved in so many of the like Reiki and body talk and tarot cards, and all that started up around 2011, 12, more so as she became preoccupied with this kind of thing. And Neptune here can keep you quite focused on the dreamy, mystical, occult mysteries, but and your imagination and dreams at night and dreaming of the dead and getting in touch with the deeper layers of reality. And all along comes Saturn for the next 3 years and says, and what are you going to do with it? Like, how does it get practical? How do you ground this? What use does it have in the world? Or what is it really useful for you? So Saturn's picking up some of the steam of, or the foggy stuff that Neptune's been doing and trying to constellate it. So bring it into some form. It's a water story. So you could say that, Neptune's going to flash freeze some of these creative, mystical things that you've been up to into something you can touch and feel and use in the world. I feel like this can also look a lot of the times like, see, Saturn is moving through the house that connects to the fourth house of ancestors and also to the 12th house of past lives. It's trining those houses. And so these are moksha or spiritual liberation houses. And you liberate spiritually when Saturn's there through wisdom, through tradition, and through elders. And it's possible because the eighth house is about identity and who you think you are in the world versus who you really are. And you want to strip away all that is not you. So all the family obligations, ancestral stories, and past life karma and gunk and habits, that to pair yourself away from that to become the core essence of I am in who are you? I am that I am. It's kind of very eighth house, right? So the eighth house Saturn could be definitely a spiritual shift over the next 3 years, but you're looking at that through Saturnian ways and means. So it's going into a tradition or studying or learning with or being guided by a spiritual master or an elder of some sort. There is a thought in modern astrology that sexual intimacy can belong to the eighth house. And so it would be more the deep emotional intimacy or the tantric level of intimacy. And if that's true, then Saturn here would be bringing you some sort of new form for that sexual intimacy. So maybe like more meditative connection, more, tantra, or your mind to my mind, or your Shiva to my Shakti. But then you'd be doing that from a level of a tradition of some sort, so you'd be finding like a tradition that offers you that. Psychology and the mind can be the eighth house, and Saturn can be an elder. So you may pick up an elder psychologist to help you with your psychology, your mental health, and stuff like that. I find that Saturn here could be like a classic get thee to a Jungian, but it's something like that could happen for some of you Leos if you're into seeing a therapist. And because this is going to light up, or is angular to your fourth house, to your fifth house and your 11th house and your second house. So we talked about the money stories, but the 11th and the fifth are also money houses. So a lot of this is going to really transform your finances over the next 3 years. And also make you very realistic and sensible about money in some ways, fundamentally. A lot of this looks like how Jupiter sits in your natal chart will tell us more about how and where it plays out and what ways it plays out. This is why getting a personal reading with any astrologer is a lot more important than just listening to YouTube videos all the time. So I encourage you all to think that way, and you can come see me, description box below. But I'm recording in December. I was booked out to the end of March. And then I opened up some more spots because I realized that my clients who wanted to come back were stuck. But I think that I'm getting to a point in my business by the time I get to the middle of 23 where I might have to close my booking doors, right? So anyway, as I tell you, Leos, about that. All right, moving on to the next sign. Okay, Virgo, sun, moon, and rising, especially most accurate rising sign. Let me take a sip of my ampersand tea. By Numi. No, I'm not getting paid for this. So delicious. So first of all, go back to 1993 May to April of 96 if you're old enough, and tell me or tell yourself what was going on in your relationship house: significant other, marriage, business partners, or long-term friends, or audience clients and others. Okay, big gamut of possibilities, right? Your seventh house isn't a very critical place. It's angular. It's angular because now we're doing it again. Saturn is back, and he's going to be back here from, as I said, March 7th to February of 26, March 7th of 23 to February of 26. In some fundamental way, Saturn coming through the seventh house is going to influence your relational life. Now, when I had this transit, I dated a guy who was 20 years older, or I did for 2 years, 18 years older than me, or 16 actually, but quite a bit older. Saturn is an elder. If you were a single Virgo, the next 3 years could bring a relationship with someone quite significantly, minimum of 7 years, I'd say, older than you. And it also is a transit that leads to difficulties in existing relationships, or conversely, a serious direction for the new relationship in which people are getting serious about the story. If we're going to be together, honey, shouldn't we get married? Or do you think we should move in together? Or do you think, if we're really serious, don't you think we should be making commitment vows or something? Isn't this time for the monogamy vow? These kinds of things are what Saturn cares about: going the distance, being the marathon runner, persevering, the long game, the long haul, the long tail. And all of a sudden he's in your marriage house or significant others or business partner. And all of this means that suddenly those people in your life, and you are going to level up to being more serious about these relationships. Sometimes Saturn going through this house doesn't like the way the relationship is. He inspects the foundation like a building inspector, and he takes a good long look at it and checks off all these things on his form, and he goes, crack foundation. And unfortunately, relationships often fall apart here. So I also had Saturn moving through my 7th house, and a relationship ended. So you see, this kind of thing is what Saturn does, but he's not malefic in the sense of, well, he is a malefic planet, but he's not necessarily truly malefic. We just don't like hard taskmasters and hard, sober realism. We prefer not to have it. If you're a Virgo rising, especially, you've had Neptune in your 7th house since 2011. Now, you know, you've fallen in love with the wrong people. Sometimes you've had these rose-colored glasses on. You've imagined that they're perfect. You put these rose-colored glasses on, you imagine that they're perfect, that they have no flaws, that they're your ideal partner, and then it all came crashing down around you. So the problem with that transit is that Neptune can make you quite whimsical, deluded, hopeful, and deluded is probably the best word for it, about the significant business and love partnerships you've attracted. Now, this is changing because Saturn has got the sober-minded eye, and he says, as I said, does it stand the test of time? Does it pass his inspection muster? He's like the good housekeeping seal of approval in your marriage, relationships, monogamy, significant others' house. Your partner, if you've got one already and you're significantly together for a while, like a marriage or monogamous partnership, may experience a sort of side effect of this transit, being that they feel anxious, they feel depressed, or they feel worried, or they feel heavy and dutiful and responsible. They could receive Saturnian overlap here as well. So it may not just be how you're feeling, it may be how they're experiencing the transit through the 7th in your chart. Elders can enter your life, wise people, senexes and sages, people who have authority and mastery, and they can be quite influential in your life. And if, you know, for a Virgo rising, this means you might attract advisors and guides that are really going to go the distance with you. This would be the ideal time to pick up a long-term relationship with a therapist, a life coach, or somebody like that, or spiritual mentor, the Neptune co-present. You know, this is going to activate, of course, Saturn squaring off, looking at you, the house of you. So this is sometimes like is your marriage partner feeling like they're giving you a lot of control energy, harshness, that your marriage partner feels cold and distant or stern and controlling. Did I say controlling? I'm sorry, I'm working on lighting with this. It's getting dark here. And I've got a bunch of lights on in my kitchen, so bear with me. I notice if I put this right up, I become a fog. So I have to try something new. These are like desk lamps. I have professional lighting kits. They're all in storage right now until I move mid-January into my new place. So if your partner feels super gnarly, like they're judging you, they're controlling you, they're being mean to you in the next 3 years, you may be the one who says, I'm done, like I can't deal, you know. So watch for that in this transit as well. And Saturn is eyeballing your 10th house of career in a square, applying towards your 10th house. This could definitely mean that he wants you to find other people that they're very important to your career path. They can help you up level your career. So he'll try to bring those people into your life, whether they're business partners, mentors, guides, or your audience as well. Honestly, you could even say that your audience, you could appeal to a geriatric audience with Saturn moving through your 7th house for 3 years. All righty. Anything else for you Virgos? I mean, Saturn was paving the way for this, you know, as you move through your 6th house from 2020 to 23. This is not easy for Virgos, made you work really hard. You were grinding nonstop at whatever you do in the world. My daughter's a student, grinding in her student life, grinding in her day job as a room desk person. And that grind is over, which is good. But now he's been preparing you because, you know, the 6th house is the house of dating. So some of you may have been extendedly dating someone for 3 years. And now Saturn's like, what are we going to do here? Is this going to last? Yes or no? Make a decision. Poop or get off the pot. Are you going to get married or not get married? Are you going to move in or not move in? Okay, you got the gist. All right, that's it. I hope it, and it's the end of health challenges for some of you Virgos. Saturn going through your sixth house of sickness has been resulted in karmic health challenges, and those are ending now. Thank you, March 7th. And you can look in the rear view mirror at those health challenges as well. And next signs up. Going to be coming up. Oh, in the live premiere, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, Libra. Well, here we are, Saturn, the Lord of time and karma, who moving through the Pisces corridor of your sky from March of 2023 till February of 26. And this is a house of the sixth house of the work and the work you do, the workaday routines, your daily health and work routines, as well as the house of sickness, the house of karmic debt, pets, tenancies, being a landlord or a tenant, the job space, the co-worker space. Now, there's a lot to be said about this. Number one, be careful and cautious to take care of your health, because Saturn can bring karmic afflictions to your body during this transit, because this is a house of sickness. And so the last sign that got this transit were the Virgos. It's your turn, Libra. So it's not that you have to be sick. And this is mostly for the Libra rising. Okay. Sun and moon is not necessarily for that. And so you want to pay attention, therefore, to your physical wellness and be preemptive and get your blood work regularly done and take good care of your body. Saturn in Pisces probably wants you to swim laps, honestly, but figure out something that is flowing because of the water sign, but structured, disciplined, focused to repair your health if it's needed, or to sustain your health preventatively. But here, you can also have really great routines and structures that you're putting into place regarding your work. Things like getting a PayPal account or a Stripe or payment processors or autoresponders or mail lists, or if you're working in a boss situation with coworkers, this is going to be your structure and form and regularity in the work routines. You could also find that this is a time in which a new boss comes into your life in a context of work. This person may be an actual ally for you or a pain in the butt, because the higher mastery levels, like above you, authorities, is Saturn. Neptune has been in your sixth house for a whole long time, since 2011. This is when it comes to health challenges have been really difficult, because you made it felt that your health problems were hard to diagnose and diffuse, where doctors could find nothing wrong with you, but you didn't feel good. Saturn will come in and level the playing field and say, well, we're going to not only find out what's really, get to the bottom of this, we'll find out what's really ailing you, and then we're going to find out ways to improve and fix and create solutions here. Saturn is a karma god in a karma house. So what we could be seeing is a lot of karmatic stories unfolding, mostly regarding work and health situations. Okay. But also if you're dating somebody in this period in the next 3 years, and you go back to, May of 93 to April of 96 for the last time you had this transit. But if you start dating somebody in the next 3 years, until 26 February, starting next March, and this is a very karmic relationship, because this is the house of dating, the axis of karma. Karmic debts that you have can be resolved when Saturn comes through here. You may finish up karmic stories with people in your life. Don't be surprised, therefore, people that you thought were going to be around for the long duration don't stick, because the karmic shelf life has come up to pass. Time to take that off the shelf because it's no longer needed. The relationship time has expired, and this includes all kinds of relationships in your life. Pets, Saturn, the Grim Reaper. So ailing, aged, old pets maybe could pass during the next 3 years. You may feel a sense of hardship, though, regarding pets. Like now all of a sudden your pets feel like an obligation and you don't want to take care of them. You may also find that things to do with leasing a property or renting a property, or as a landlord or the leasee, are either going to feel like a challenge, or they're going to feel like you have to get something solid and really pay attention over the next 3 years to where you're renting or renting out a place and who you choose to be in it. So for example, my daughter went through this whole thing, right? Saturn through the house of tenancies from 2020 to 2023. And during that time, there was a major calamity in a place she was renting, where she had to move out suddenly with a terrible challenge with a roommate and stuff like that, and huge calamity. But on the other hand, at the tail end of that transit, she found the most perfect rental and the most perfect place. So it works both ways. And then the calamity was because Saturn is like literally the taskmaster and the foundation inspector. And he's like, no, this roommate situation has no solid foundation, to my daughter, for instance, and we're going to kibosh it. And that's what happened. All right. And it led to better things. So don't always think it's a bad thing when, if your tenants, if you have, your landlord gives you notice, you have to move, or, there's a, rat infestation where you live, don't worry, there's something better coming. Saturn will find you a better living accommodation through rentals during this transit, if renting a place is something that you do. Lastly, debt, like having credit card debt and stuff, can be a sixth house meaning. And Saturn will give you the focus, the discipline, the perseverance to begin to pay off those debts. Now, I'm not talking about your spending. I'm talking about accumulated debt. Okay. You may spend wrongly still. I mean, that's spending your money is a second house thing. Good news is he is trining your second house, so you may get a handle on your spending. If you spend too much habitually, you may try to save or budget, but for the most part, I'm suggesting that this can help you structure a debt repayment plan or eliminate debts if you need to. He does sextile the fourth house of real estate, and you could also potentially buy a home during this transit over the next 3 years, because he also is sextile in the house of mortgages and loans. And so maybe some of you Libras will be buying a property in the next 3 years. And I think that's all I have to say. My best suggestion is to harness the power of Saturn to create concrete structures for your health that better your health and prevent illness during this transit. And if you have an illness, don't blame yourself. This is a very karmic time when illness can occur that has nothing to do with this life. I know I don't want to say it's a karmic illness, but that's the truth of the matter. It's not your fault, okay? Basically, not in this lifetime anyway. All right, moving on to the next sign. Don't forget to hit my like button. Please like me. If you're in the live premiere, I'm a broken record. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And even if you're not in the premiere, please subscribe. It helps the channel grow. It keeps me alive in terms of the business alive, so I can do this work instead of going into some other line of work. Thanks, guys. Hello, Scorpio, sun, moon, but always most accurate rising sign. I sound like a broken record. Don't know your rising sign, you'll need a birth time. Check my free tutorial on how to cast your chart in whole sign houses and get your rising sign. All right, so let's start off with talking about this idea of a Pisces movement of Saturn through your fifth house, which is starting on March 7th of next year and lasts until February of 2026. You last had this in 1993 to 96. Well, this is a flow of energy from Saturn straight to your ascendant, straight to your body, straight to your identity, energetically, always looking back over your shoulder, but you're feeling the vibe. And it's in the house of children, romance, creativity, the muse, inspiration, play, joy, and pleasure. Now, there's a bit of a joke here because and pregnancy, did I say that? This is a house that Saturn is like not necessarily naturally affinity to, you know what I mean? Because we look at this as Venus has her joy here, the goddess of pleasure, for example. This is a house that has to do with fun and frivolity, to do with enjoyment of life and its pleasures, to do with the vitality of the sun. It's a natural Leo house. And Saturn is cold, stern, stoic, disciplined, harsh, wintry energy in the Northern Hemisphere, cold and dry and all of that. And here, this is a warm, summery vibe, sun Leo energy naturally here in the sky. You just might find that it's a couple of things, right? One, it's like you're going to work hard in order to have fun. So this is where you break out the bubbly after you've been writing your novel for 3 months at a time, and then you come out and party hard. Or that you look at your enjoyment and pleasure from a sober-minded eye. You're like, okay, yes, I can drink wine, but not every day. Or yes, it's all good and fun to enjoy your life and go on leisure trips, which can be a fifth house thing. But let's be serious about how much we do that. We need to also get serious about life. Sometimes here, this is hardship for your children, or you're raising your children feels like a hardship. Like, oh my God, it's just so hard to raise my kids. It's like, it's an ordeal. I mean, it feels like a burden to be a mom or a dad. That can happen here when Saturn moves through the fifth house of children. And this happened for me. I remember feeling that way back in 2000 to 2003, because my mom had just passed, and all of a sudden I was depleted and totally unenergized. And it was like all of a sudden parenting felt like this like Herculean task, you know. This is your romance house, and this can bring in a romance with somebody who's an elder. So like older than you, not necessarily geriatric, but at least 7 years older. When it comes to romance, so you're more serious. You're not going to just fling away. This is like, if you're a single Scorpio, this is not a party, Tinder, hookup, transit. If you've been into the old hookup thing, just having fun, having sex with rando people, that's stopping. This is not happening. You are like not going there anymore. You're like coming to your senses and going, no, no, no. If I'm dating somebody, if I'm having a romance life, it's with somebody that's going to bring me something of lasting value. You're looking for the quality relationship, not the quantity. You're not looking for short-term gains, but long-term gains. This is a transit that can also be good for writers, for artists, musicians, anybody who's a creative, because Saturn can bring you the power, the focus, and the discipline to write something. So when this happened to me in my 5th house, way back when, I did write an entire book-length manuscript called Falling Off the Edge of the World, as a memoir about my mom's death. And I had the discipline to get up every day, go to the coffee shop and write. This is really also about creating legacy products. So, you know, you may write something that can really have trilogies or go the distance or have a longer term value than your own lifetime. This is a time as well where if you're trying to be pregnant or your partner's trying to be pregnant, either this feels like a hardship, like, you know, you really don't want to get pregnant, or that this is a difficult time to get pregnant and it may not be successful. So like for the female Scorpios, I'd say, can you wait 3 years? Will your clock allow it? And if you're a male, then you have to be patient here, because, you know, this is just not the easiest time for your partner to get pregnant. Saturn in the 5th house is the house of independent business enterprise. And this could be a time in which you are really grinding and working hard on your entrepreneurial endeavors. And again, you will play, but only after you worked hard. You will play hard, work hard, or you will work to play. You'll try to work hard to play. This is not a good time for speculation. This is like where you would go into like, I'm going to bet on the horses or go to the casino or buy a risky stock or play the lottery. I mean, sure, don't stop playing the lottery, but Saturn is not likely to give you a big payout in this part of the sky at this time regarding those things. Okay. So it's a 3-year kind of not the way the money's coming. That's for sure. Sometimes it can be like a sense of being like isolated or contracted around your creativity, like literally having to do it all by yourself and there's no one here to help you. And that's true for most artists anyway, but suddenly the weight of the quality of whatever you're doing, that you want to create something of legacy value, but you realize it's a solitary endeavor and you're just having a deal, what can you do? Good news is that Saturn is trining your 1st house. So at the end of the day, as hard as it is, you're feeling good in a water flow trine toward all of the things I've just mentioned. Back to romance. Any romance that starts under this 3-year transit may not only be somebody older, but can be very karmatic and very destined and have an element of a shelf life because of the karma on it. All right. You may not feel particularly romantic most of the time, and your sex drive can go down. Saturn through the 5th house, for those of you for whom sex drive is a thing, I'm way menopausal, then all of a sudden you can feel all of a sudden like an old person, like sex schmacks, So your partner would have to deal with that. You'll have to tell them, oh, it's just Saturn in my 5th house, or you'll have to deal with it yourself and take some kind of, oysters and jumpstart your mojo and your libido with some kind of herbal remedy, because it's not going to be the thing on your mind, right? Or in your gonads or whatever. Alrighty. Thanks, Scorpio, for listening. Are you in the like? Are you in this premiere? Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. If you're new to my channel, please check my description box below. Honestly, I'm teaching classes next year. You want to get on the wait list for those. My All Signs bundle or a la carte deep dive 1-hour videos are for sale. They're so affordable in my description box below. Use the Santa 25 code for the bundle and 12 hours of videos for $35. It's less than $3 a video. And you get all signs. Listen for your friends, family, for your sun, moon, and rising. It's a bonanza at Christmas. All right, we're moving on to the next sign. Hi, Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising. This is a humdinger. This is going to affect you pretty strongly. As I mentioned in the beginning, I think I did anyway, the angular houses are going to experience this as a more intense transit. I mean, so the angular mutable houses, and Sagittarius are one of them. So this is your fourth house. And no, don't forget to go back in time, by the way, to 1993 to 1996. That was like May of 93 to April of 96 to what was happening then, because what's happening now, again, it could be complementary or similar. And this is happening, of course, as I said in the intro, but I'll repeat for you, March the 7th through to February of 2026. So it's about your home. It's about where you live. It's about your homeland. It's about your property. It's about your domestic, quiet, private home life, your home and hearth. It's about your ancestors, your mother, and your family of origin and your childhood. That's a lot of stuff. And it's what you do in your privacy, you know, when you're not in the public eye. Now, Saturn coming through the fourth house is funny sometimes. It means an elder can come live with us. I mean, it could literally mean that grandpa or my aging grandparent or my aging parent comes to live in my home. And so that's a possibility over the next 3 years. It also can mean that your home feels like a hardship. Things you're doing in the home feel hard. People that you live with feel hard, controlling, stern, and cold. You feel like something's a struggle with regards to home. In essence, home isn't the fun spot. On the other hand, there's some value with this. You could have an inheritance come through with this transit because this activates the 8th house and it's a legacy wealth place in the chart. So an inheritance from your family of origin could be initiated by the Saturn transit over the next 3 years. The other thing you could have going on, I love these earrings. Oh my God, I'm going to put the designer's link below. You could also have the movement of Saturn through the fourth house be very much about establishing a safe, secure, lasting home. That can look like building a new home, finding a forever home, anchoring into a new home, being really realistic about what kind of new home you should have. It's going to mean that if you're looking for a property and you buy something over the next 3 years, it's probably a place you're going to stay in for a long time. And it could also mean that your current home, if you're trying to sell it, you're not getting the price you want. In terms of, you know, outcome, it feels difficult. Sorry to say. I know there's going to be a crash in the housing market. We ain't seen nothing yet. Homeland, okay? Saturn is about isolation. You may feel alone a lot of the time in your home, but what about the concept of homeland? For some of you, it can have some resonance here. Like if you're an expat and you don't live in your natal homeland and you want to go back to your homeland, Saturn can help you establish the means and ways to do that, but you must persevere, right? And you know, I think that sometimes it's like the Saturn in the 12th house. Saturn in the fourth can be a hermity transit where you are spending more time alone, like after work or whatever, you get home and you're by yourself, or you're living in a place where you don't have a lot of social contacts and networks or anything yet established. And this may be a sense of being isolated in your home. So I know, like, I'll give you an example. A person I know is moving to Portugal, Sag Sun. Hello, doesn't know anybody in Portugal. He's going to do that he's going to do that in March of 2023. I bet you any money he's going to feel lonely and alone in his home. And he's going to probably wonder why he moved to Portugal. But yeah, you know, what are you going to do? If you move to a foreign country, you're going to not know anybody there. So of course it's going to look like that. And also things you do in the home can have legacy value for the world. So if you wanted to be writing, creating, or doing something like that, you could create something of great importance as well, but you'd be doing it in and from your home. Bottom line though, is there's a lot of focus on being at home and in your home, and a home alone, like that movie Home Alone with, you know, for the ages ago. Oh, sorry guys, I got itchy back. dry skin in the winter here in Canada. And I noticed my shoulder exists and doesn't exist, excuse me for the effect. Saturn will be in a square applying to your marriage house from the house of the home. If you are already in an established relationship that's like a marriage, this is a difficult transit. It is as equally as challenging, I think, as Saturn moving through the 7th house itself, which is happening for the Virgos. It means that Saturn is causing a gnarly glare toward your descendant, and that's your marriage place. And so this can make your primary relationship feel hard. And it may be because of things that are happening in the home. But whatever it is, I can't just say it's a bed of roses in the marriage. Saturn squaring the marriage house can also create an end to a marriage. Now, I'm not telling you something you don't know. I'm not talking to you because you're happily married, everything's wonderful. This is going to be because things begin to feel hard, or already have begun to feel hard, or will begin to feel hard, and there may be an exit strategy involved with Saturn here. All right, Sagittarius. Saturn in your 4th house is opposing your 10th house of career, and in a waning square to your body. Take care of your health, take care of your body. And also, you probably don't even want a career. You want to quit your job, you want to quit your career, or you already have, you don't want to ever go to a career mode again. That's because Saturn is like from the home, like glaring at the career zone. So keep that in mind. And your health has got a kind of waning, looking back over his shoulder, like inferior square to your body. You still have to take care of your health, but he's mostly angling into your his motion toward your marriage house. If you're a Sagittarius rising in the first 10 degrees of the Sag, this is going to be most particularly influencing you in 23 and the other Sages later on, especially regarding the marriage story being difficult. And Sun and Moon secondarily, okay? Because Saturn squaring your Sun and Moon is mom and dad, maybe, right? Or mother, father figures. And so I mentioned this for all of you mutables. I hope I didn't forget anybody, but if your sun is in Sagittarius, or your sun is in Gemini, Saturn, or your sun is in Virgo, Saturn is squaring or opposing your sun, which is your dad or father figure, or conversely, Moon, mom or mother figure. And sometimes these Saturn squares and oppositions are to do with those people, which is why we go listen for your rising sign, because it's really the only thing that's all about you and not collaterally about other people. Thank you for listening. If you're in the live chat, oh, a shout out a few of my people here. The Feral Writer, Stephen the Jupiterian, L.A. Taylor, Kelly K. Oh my God. Mercury with the Message. Pretty Dark. I always remember the fancier names than the individual real names. I apologize for that. Amber somebody. One Wise Lady, Twisted Art Lady. If any of you are here, hi, and thanks for being a part of my crew that come to these lives. If you haven't come to a live yet, you hit the bell for notifications, and then you get notified that I'm doing a premiere, and we're all chatting in the box while the video plays and getting to know each other around the world. All right, these people are all over the world. It's so much fun. Australia, England, Britain, Denmark, Belgium, Scotland, some really cool places, India, Bali. So come join in. Okay. Moving to the next sign. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising sign. It's getting so dark here as I record for you today. Let's see if I can move any lights closer. We'll just deal. Welcome. Perfect for Capricorns. It's getting pitch black here in Vancouver, Canada on December 24th as I record this for you. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising. Go back to May of 93 to April of 96. This is the last time that Saturn moved through Pisces, and Pisces in your natal sky is your 3rd house. This is happening again, by the way, March of 7th of 23 to February of 26. Your 3rd house is a house of siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews, travel, short journeys and trips, skills-based learning, writing, communicating, your local neighborhood, and the online world. Saturn brings hardship, constriction, constraint, but stability, enduring and lasting results, creates new foundations. So for example, if you're a writer and Saturn goes through here, discipline and focus as you write, but also maybe something of great value and legacy value and notable mastery that you're writing about. Now, I mean, a lot of you aren't writers. So I mean, it's not just as an example, okay? So Capricorn, The other thing I'd say here is that this is often about a sibling, not about you. This can be a hardship with a sibling. Suddenly there's a falling out, a crisis, the siblings being mean to you, older sibling, younger sibling, doesn't matter, just siblings in general. This can also be an illness that the sibling is enduring, right? It could be about them or their depression or their anxiety. So keep that in mind. Third house is not always about us, especially all the aunts, uncles, cousins that can be happening here. This is trips and travel, and Saturn through the third house constrains your trips and travel. It will reduce the travel. Okay, you just won't be traveling as much for whatever reason. Now, this is short trips and travel, not long distance getaways, but it can constrain your to and fro travel, and you may not be doing that much of it. Sometimes, though, if you need to commute, like imagine your job is a commuting job, Saturn would be the hardship of the commute. Okay, but for the most part, this is more like I don't travel very much anymore. I don't get out and about to travel. The neighborhood interest is an interesting part of it, like the shops, tienda stores, the things that are around you, where you live. Saturn can make your neighborhood feel a little bit hard. You may not enjoy your neighborhood for some reason. It may feel harsh. It may feel like too constricted somehow. And, you may want to change your neighborhood by the end of this transit. You may be questioning things to do with why your neighborhood feels hard, or you feel alone or constrained or restricted or isolated. For example, you could move to a neighborhood that is wonderful on the surface. And when you get there, you realize that you're isolated. It's too far from other things you want to do. I'll give you an example. My Capricorn ex-husband, rising, is going to move to Portugal. He wants to move to this beach neighborhood that's like 45 minutes out of Lisbon. And I'm thinking, you're going to feel isolated there. Like, it's not a big town. It's tiny. Why not move to Lisbon and have like a life, right? I bet you any money, I should let him watch this video, that if he moves to that little beach town in Lisbon instead of Lisbon itself, outside of Lisbon, he's going to feel isolated and not like the neighborhood at the end of the day, and find out that the surfers are rowdy partiers all night and it's a surfing town, and he's not a surfer. Anyway, this is just a thought, but I'm just giving examples. Your virtual neighborhood, your online world, social media platforms can be the third house, your website land and all of that. Saturn can kind of put a wet blanket on this part of your life. You may feel you're on an exit strategy from Facebook. You want to downsize on Instagram. This could be a natural inclination with Saturn going through your third house. I wouldn't be surprised. If you want to learn something, this is skills-based learning. Saturn gives you the quality of mastery and endurance. This would be a great time over these 3 years. And go back, did you learn anything in 93 to 96? What was happening with a sibling then? Compare notes. But, Neptune's been going through your house of trips and travel and journeys and learning and siblings. And it's been like fogging your vision. Like you've been a little bit diluted, you're not seeing clearly all the time, hopeful, wishful, but not necessarily realistic. And along comes realistic Saturn. Let's get real about that sibling. You're never going to get along. Let's get real about this this book you want to write. You got to structure the damn thing, Saturn. Let's get real about the neighborhood that you think you want to live in. Don't have a fantasy that it's going to be wonderful. Check it out before you, maybe rent before you buy, that kind of thing. Saturn here may open up a gateway for that learning of something so powerful for you, because he will be there for 3 years, and you could really dive into some area of study over the next 3 years and come up the other end with mastery to become an expert authority in some applied learning, something you can actually use in your life. If you're a writer, Neptune, Saturn, structure, discipline, focus to write. Neptune, film rights, Hollywood, movies, but Neptune's also the god of storytelling. And maybe your writing is highly cinematic and you're creating scenes in your imagination. This is the house of the goddess, and you may be involved more often with Senex wise men and women who are oracles, seers, scryers, diviners, and crystal ball gazers. You might start attracting those types of people into your life with Saturn, especially with Neptune there as well. And anything else I want to say? Just your kind of local neighborhood daily life can feel constricted. I'm just giving you a warning for if you're moving and any caps are thinking of moving their neighborhood, do some due diligence here. Can you offset that Saturn transit with some intelligent wisdom ahead of time? Probably. But on the other hand, it could mean you meet a lot of old people. Like, you know what I mean? Like you move to a neighborhood with a lot of elders there, and that might be a good thing, to get to know them and to learn from them as well. All right. Thanks, Capricorn, for listening. Are you in the premiere with me? Hit my like button. Don't forget to subscribe and check my description box below for all my courses next year and a free read and readings with me and my All Signs 2023 bundle. Or just buy your sign a la carte for $15, $14.97. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Is it just me or is this a marathon video? I have to stop the video. Aquarius, I have to stop the video between every reading and put a new background in. Anyway, so, and you're last but not least, because I started with Pisces. So Aquarius, I think that I want to make sure you guys can see it while I talk, so I'm not blocking the Aquarius logo. All right, Aquarius, I'm one of you. I have Saturn on the ascendant. My ascendant is around 16 to 18 degrees, depending on which rectified chart I use. I think it's really at 16. And we have just left this zone of having Saturn moving through our frickin' house since March of 2020, first ingress and finishing up in March of 2023. So was it fun and easy? No. But did we learn a lot? Yeah. And, you know, it's my first joined Sober Sisters was actually, not to stop drinking so much wine, was actually during that first ingress in 2020 in the spring. So here we have the movement of Saturn into our second house. And I think it's very welcome for us in a lot of ways. Number one, it's going to open up a doorway towards better handling of our finances. It's going to allow us to grind into saving money, persevering and being steady and disciplined in the way we save and earn and possess money and possessions. We'll be conservative with our possessions. We will say, I'm going to get a car, but it'll be used. I'm going to buy that, you know, Chanel outfit, but it's from the thrift store or whatever, you know, and the conservatism, the restraint, the discipline are going to serve us very, very well. If you go back to May of 93 to April of 96, I want you to think of earnings and possessions, self-worth, and see how that worked for you. I'll give me as an example. In 93 to 96, I was working in Washington, D.C., and I was looking for a job, basically. I was a journalist and couldn't find work. I had moved from New York City, and I decided to, and I had gone back to school, but didn't really find the program, Masters of Fine Art at American University, working for me, and I left it. But there were a lot of false starts then. So I went back to school, but I dropped out of school, didn't feel right. But then I also got a job. Then I got my real estate license. And then I also got a degree in desktop publishing. That was a thing back then. And I can remember that time then between May of 93 and April of 96, finishing strong. Because then in around 1994, I started my work as a psychic reader. And I was doing full-time psychic readings and doing really well. And by the time I finished that career, at the end of my 30s, I was on a BBC documentary doing remote viewing. I had a lot of press. I had clients around the United States and around the world, and I was successful at what I did. But Saturn is going to take you to task, take me to task about not only our earnings, but how we earn our money. Does it pass his test of quality? It's not enough to put, you know, junk into the world, for instance, since I'm a YouTuber, right? I'll probably get a lot more serious about my content over the next 3 years. I'll probably put a lot of teaching content out. I may have different standards for what I want to put out there. I won't suffer my own content full gladly. And, you know, Saturn here may feel harsh in the beginning, but at the end, you finish with mastery and strength. It will affect all of us, actually, because we're in aversion. So the degrees don't really matter. Never mind, just talking astrology to myself. I mean, all Aquarians kind of feel this. I guess you could sort of say Aquarians in the first 10 degrees might feel it more as a semi-sextile energy to their first house, but maybe not. You know, the second house is about food and what you put in your mouth and what you eat and drink. It goes through here. And this is austere. Saturn is like austere, stern, controlled. So there's no doubt about it. There's going to be a diet change. If you have substance abuse issues, Saturn will help you get control of them. And if you are needing to change your diet style and move away from something that doesn't work in your body, like gluten or something, or, you know, legumes or whatever your body issues are, Saturn will give you the perseverance, discipline, and focus to change your food style. And Saturn is going through the part of the body that represents your face. So Saturn is a time of the Lord of time. Some of you may get really serious about your face. So like I might go, oh, you know what? Maybe I will get like a little, like what do you call it? Like a thing here. You might want to do something to, to work on your face in a serious way. Saturn going through here is also connected to the house of your voice, like speech. And Saturn is constriction, but also authority. So a couple of thoughts. If your speech has problems, like literally your vocal cords speaking like, you may have to deal with that. You may see what's wrong. Maybe get your blood work done, check your blood work, your thyroid. So constraint in the throat. But on the other hand, the other thing is possible because it's your voice, which ties to vocari, vocation, and calling. And Saturn is authority and mastery. You may develop a more masterful voice, a more masterful speech. Now, I just want to get a better mic. Okay. I've had this since 2014, but that's Saturn going into my second house. I'm going to get maybe like a really good, one of those mics, like the super duper ones. Who knows? It could be that. The quality of speech, Saturn, quality, not quantity. So maybe some of us will be speaking more severely. We'll be parsing our words. We'll say less and mean more. Saturn will be in a trine or a flow to the house of career, the 10th house, water flowing, our Scorpio whole sign 10th house. This can open up new opportunities to step into more power and earnings power by having more mastery and authority in the work we're doing in the world. And if I go back to the last time this happened, I wasn't going to be being a desktop publisher wasn't for me. Being a real estate agent wasn't for me. Those are the first year of Saturn moving through Pisces back in 93. And then by 94, 95, I stepped away from that. And I became this full-time psychic, and double doors opened because I was really good at it. And that's what Saturn said. This is where you're going. You can do mastery and authority here. And I did that career from about 1994 until 2003 or almost 2004, almost 9 years. I know I'm going to forget something about the second house. It's your possessions. Yeah, being more serious, austere about what you wish to possess. Neptune is here. Did I say that? You've been dreaming and fogged up about how to earn money and also have high spiritual standards around how you earn money since 2011. It's a bit of a bitch, right? I mean, we're not allowed to just shill, or sell crap or do things that our conscience, our spiritual awareness wouldn't allow. So when Neptune first got into here in 2011, I had this enlightenment episode just before that. And all my stuff was about enlightenment, the Wake and Dreamer blog. I was teaching groups of people on how to harness enlightenment through synchronicity. I was trying to position a little bit like a spiritual teacher, mentor, but I didn't really want to do that. And it's interesting with that, right? Because I have Jupiter in my second house, so teacher. And then, Neptune's moving through there, spiritual teacher, but I kept resisting that, didn't feel right. But you can't really make money at that. And so, that wasn't working. Now in comes Saturn and he's like, okay, we're going to take all that spiritual stuff and make it real. Neptune is the god of filmmaking and storytelling, the house of speech and the voice. Some Aquarians may move into film storytelling, filmmaking, screenplay writing, things I wish like to do, actually more into storytelling. Saturn gives you the discipline, structure, and form and perseverance and marathon long haul to get it done. And so that's what we have to look forward to. And sometimes if you're looking at Vedic astrology, you're like, your family you grew up with is your second house, and you may have some times in which there's hardships with those people that you grew up with. Your mom and dad are still alive. Maybe your family of origin siblings may be in difficulty or hardship. They may be having it, or whatever, health challenges, or you may be having a hard time with them. Now, I think that's all I can say about the second house. And I know so many more things we could go into, but just know that this is definitely going to amplify your money over the long haul, right? Not in the short term, but in the long haul narrative, as you get more serious, disciplined, and conservative, but masterful in your finances. Thanks, Aquarius. If you're in the live chat, thanks for hanging in there. I have a feeling this video is extraordinarily long, but I didn't check when I started now. So because I have a lighting kit, it's not, I can see, not a lighting kit, but like I've got lamps in the kitchen. I wasn't paying attention to how dark it was getting. Thanks for listening. Check my description box below. This is being recorded on December 24th. My Patreon community gets it way before everybody else, usually like anywhere from 2 to 3 days up to a week before, even longer sometimes, and they get it ad-free. So if that interests you, for only $5 a month, you'll become part of my Patreon community and you get this content ahead of the curve. $5 a month, I think it's worth it, ad-free, although I'm not encouraging you to leave my ad-free zone because that's how I get paid as well, by doing these videos from YouTube. Thank you, everyone. I'm wishing you all the best in 2023. May Saturn bless you with mastery, authority, strength, perseverance, and the ability to cross the marathon lines of your life.